Big one at the Murph this week with John Elway and Dan. Nope, that's not it. Oh, we still got the Broncos and the Chargers this time over at SoFi Stadium. Flory, what are you looking for in this one?
I think you need to start Keenan Allen, right? Like, not only does he have a history of success against this Denver defense, but he is just eating right now. The Chargers might be limiting his snaps, but when he's on the field, they are throwing his way at the 4th highest rate in the NFL. Third and Keenan is a real thing. Keenan also plays a good amount of his snaps from the slot, so he could avoid Pat Surtain that way. And the Chargers, their passing attack is funneled through 3 guys right now, and Keenan might be the top one. Him and Ladd very much so in play in this matchup.
Well, if you're starting Keenan Allen, I think that means you're trying to get away from Omarion Hampton. And so far, he's gotten a lot of opportunities. He just hasn't really been effective with them. Then we saw his snap share shrink in week 2. Najee Harris obviously missed the entirety of the preseason and training camp with the eye issue, but starting to get more work as he's getting healthier and ready to go. In fact, last week, Harris had the same number of opportunities as Hampton with 15 fewer snaps. On top of it, look, I know Jonathan Taylor went ham last week against the Denver Broncos. I wouldn't expect those kind of numbers from this Chargers backfield, so I would try to stay away from Hampton if you could. Maybe it comes later, just not right now for him. Moving on to another team in the AFC West, the Las Vegas Raiders taking on the Washington Commanders. We already know no Jaden Daniels this week. Rank, does that impact how you feel about Terry McLaurin?
You would think so. Obviously, whenever the starting quarterback is out, you would be a little cautious with going on. So I'm going to say beware of Terry McLaurin. One of the reasons why is because he just hasn't clicked so far this season with the quarterback there. He's had fewer than 10 points in each game this season. So there was already some caution there moving forward. However, as we sat here and I started to look into this and looked at Marcus Mariota's starts for the Commanders over the last couple of years, Terry McLaurin has had 14 receptions, close to 150 yards, maybe overweight. Actually right on 150 yards. Can do the math there. He also scored a touchdown. So it's not the detriment that you think it is. But again, if you have players like Rome Odunze, Emeka Egbuka, like players like that, you might want to move over Terry McLaurin. Beware, but don't get out of there completely.
Yeah, friends don't let friends trust Marcus Mariota's pass catchers if they could avoid it. But I do think friends allow you to start Jacoby Myers, who is just Mr. Underappreciated at this point. 5th most targets amongst wide receivers this season with double digits in each game. It has led to double-digit fantasy points in each game. And I will fully admit I did not see this coming. The Raiders are throwing at the 4th highest rate in the NFL through 2 weeks. So as long as he's getting that kind of volume, he is going to be in play for fantasy purposes.
Next game up, it's the Houston Texans heading down to Jacksonville, heading down to Duval to take on the Jacksonville Jaguars. A couple of quarterbacks who are struggling to start the season. And on the Jacksonville side of things, that's the reason I'm saying you got to beware of Brian Thomas Jr. this week. It's not just a quarterback situation. It is partially because he's also dealing with a wrist injury that has limited his participation in practice as the Jaguars have progressed. But here's the thing about BTJ. A lot of the metrics you like are good. High route participation, good target share, high air yards per target. The problem is when you look at some of the data, 50% catchable targets, that one per Fantasy Life's utilization report, 6th worst among players with at least 30 routes run. On paper, this seems like a decent matchup against the Texans defense that's given up a lot of fantasy points to wide receivers, but until I see more accuracy, better catchable targets from Trevor Lawrence, really hard to lean on Brian Thomas Jr.
If you're saying beware of Brian Thomas Jr., there is no way you could start Trevor Mid-Lawrence, as he has been dubbed on our podcast, Marcus. Even with the big game last week against the Bengals, he is yet to finish as a QB1 in any week this season, and he has left a lot of production on the field. And it's not just that. The matchup is awful for him. He has multiple passing touchdowns in just one of his last 6 games against the Texans, and he has more career interceptions against this defense than he does touchdowns. So, yeah, I know you might be in need of a quarterback. You got to look elsewhere than Jacksonville to get one.
Looking forward to next week's edition of the podcast when Laquan Jones updates the Trevor Lawrence mid-o-meter, see where he is after this week's game against the Houston Texans. Moving on, we got the New York Jets and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And, Rank, you've mentioned Double E a couple times already in this.
I have, and I know a lot of people are probably screaming at their television sets being like, the dude is hurt. However, he did return to practice on Friday, which means he's probably good to go to start. And I'm going to start him this week against the New York Jets. One of the things that I've been the most impressed about Double E is the 93% snap share, as you see right there. He has been on the field. It is very difficult to get him out of there. He leads the Buccaneers in snaps and routes this year. He is tied for the most receiving touchdowns with 3. Him and a couple other guys. Roma Dunze is also one of them who has 3. And actually, for a rookie to have 3 touchdowns to start his career, that's something we haven't really seen since the 50s. But that's usually when they stop going back. Kendall stops. If I ask Kendall to go look up a stat on Marshall Goldberg or Gaynell Tinsley from the 40s, he won't do it. He's like, I stop at 50. Once Crazy Leg Hirsch came into the NFL, that's when the NFL started, according to Next Gen Ken. But I'm comfortable starting Emeka Egbuka this week.
Didn't think Elroy Crazy Legs Hirsch was going to make the show. Start Breece Hall on the other side of things. Mentioned at the top of the show, Justin Fields already ruled out with concussion symptoms. Look, Tyrod Taylor is a good quarterback in terms of sort of keeping the offense moving, trying to keep this thing afloat. They are not going to ask Tyrod Taylor to try and go out and win the football game for them. I think that job falls to Breece Hall. I think we kind of worry a little bit less about Braylon Allen taking over the backfield. He has really struggled in his first couple weeks of the season. Now, I would like to see Breece Hall get some more targets. We haven't seen a lot of that the first couple of weeks. Maybe that happens this week. The Bucs, we know, can move the ball. They can score. I think the Jets are going to have to try and control the ball a little bit, try and keep the ball away from Baker Mayfield and that passing game and from Bucky Irving. So I think this is going to be a week where we see a lot of Breece Hall in the offense for Gang Green. Love may have to try to beat Cleveland without his tight end Tucker Kraft, who suffered a knee injury during Thursday's practice. Head coach Matt LaFleur was non-committal on Kraft's status for Sunday's game, so be sure to watch for the inactives list before the contest. Back to our game previews. Might as well take a look at that Packers-Browns game and rank going with a guy who I feel like was underrated in drafts, but has proven folks wrong so far.
No, he's been great. I'm going to say to start the running back, Josh Jacobs, and you're like, cool, Rank, I was going to do it anyway. The guy has scored touchdowns in 11 consecutive games, the longest active streak, one off the NFL record, and that's cool. Like, you're not gonna bench him. I get that. But this matchup against the Cleveland Browns is actually very difficult because when you look at what the Browns have been able to do in stopping opposing running backs like Derrick Henry last week, remember, like I was sitting there, I pulled up to the valet at Rip. My boy Travis was like, Derrick Henry's killing me. I'm like, no. The Cleveland Browns are killing you because they are great against running backs. However, I'm still starting. There's no way that I would sit Josh Jacobs, though. So I'm just telling you to do something that you were going to do anyways.
Yeah, I don't know if a lot of people were going to attack this Packers defense, but if you do, the one position you could do so with is the tight end. The Packers have allowed the 5th most yards to tight ends so far this season. And the thing I love about Harold Fannin Jr., he's getting snaps as a running back, as a slot receiver, out wide, as a tight end. The Browns aren't using another wide receiver, third wide receiver consistently. I think Harold Fannin Jr. is a second tight end, a third wide receiver, and a fullback, all kind of in one. He is a true joker, and this joker just wants to give you a better class of tight ends.
We got a good start to the season for Fannin, for sure. Meanwhile, the Kansas City Chiefs in uncharted territory in the Patrick Mahomes era. They are 0-2. They go to the Meadowlands to take on the New York Giants. And I am telling you, you need to be starting Hollywood Brown this week. He has been the target leader by far in Kansas City, 21 targets this season. Next closest player is Travis Kelce with 10. The Giants last week got cooked from the slot, which is where Brown is doing a lot of his work from. Cowboys went for 146 yards and a touchdown from the slot against Big Blue last week. I know there's some talk, there's a chance that Xavier Worthy could be back this week, and certainly that's a welcome addition for Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs offense. But even with Worthy there, I think Brown's still going to get a lot of attention. I think he's in line for a very big game against the Giants this week.
Yeah, this is a must-win for the Chiefs with the Ravens on deck after this one. And if there's a little urgency on that side, it could lead to more points. There's going to be a lot of urgency on the Giants side, and if they're chasing points, that is only a good thing for Wan'Dale Robinson Jr., who has at least 8 targets in each game. Before the season, the Giants were talking about using him a little differently this year. Well, they actually started throwing him the ball downfield, which is completely different from anything we've ever seen with Wan'Dale Robinson. and he leads the NFL in yards from the slot right now. Only the Jets have allowed more yards to slot receivers than the Chiefs. So I think you picked up Wan'Dale in a lot of leagues this week. I'm starting him in a number myself this week.
Speaking of those two teams, that great uniform matchup if you were into that sort of thing. But it also gets us to Seize the Season, presented by Caesars Sportsbook. Up to Northern California to take on the San Francisco 49ers. In Florida, what are you paying attention to?
First, shout out to Kyler Murray representing us short kings everywhere. I think you could beware of Marvin Harrison Jr. in this one, because when they drafted him 4th overall, everyone was like, they're going to throw him the ball plenty, right? Wrong. 5.5 targets per game so far this season, 6 targets or fewer in 9 of his games last season. So the reliable volume that we thought would be there just hasn't been. And last season, he was held to fewer than 65 yards in each game against this 49ers defense. And he has been a top 10 wide receiver in just 2 of his 19 career games. So if he doesn't get a touchdown, you could be looking at a low floor, which is why he is not a must sit. But if you have options, I would look to get away.
Staying with the team in the NFC West, the Seahawks hosting the Saints up there in the Pacific Northwest. And if Kenneth Walker knew, I'm sure he would be giving me the metaphorical middle finger for trying to push him out of his job there in Seattle.
You know what? It's like that Katy Perry video. You're hot and you're cold, you're in and you're out, you fight, you break up, you kiss, you make up. But here's the thing. We're getting Kenneth Walker back into our lineups this week. I know a lot of people panicked in the early part of this season because they're like, well, who? It's Zach Charbonnet. Well, now it's Kenneth Walker. Now, how about this? This week, it could be both. Kenneth Walker has been very effective. The Saints have given up a lot of production to opposing running backs this season, especially as receivers out of the backfield. In both games this season, they've allowed a receiving touchdown to a running back. And before you completely give up on Zach Charbonnet, let me just point out, he did get 15 rushing attempts last week. He wasn't good at it, but still, he's going up against the Saints. It's a different week, and you know what? And if you bust this segment again, I'll come up with another analogy. Just keep going. Just keep trying me.
Por qué no los dos? The 2025 Seahawks running back situation.